One thing that I think is really important for people to know is that they're actually always changing. There isn't really a static self. When you begin to really understand yourself and look within yourself, what you find is that you're actually a series of rapidly changing patterns that are coming together so quickly that it really makes a momentary phenomenon. And I think when we sort of let go of that static idea of, finding who you are, but more so focusing on, let me heal myself, let me free myself of these patterns that cause me a lot of misery, then you start feeling so much more happiness and so much more freedom and flexibility to really be who you are in the moment. And something that a lot more people are beginning to understand, especially as self-love was taken more and more seriously, because when you're beginning to profoundly love yourself, right, and you're starting to understand who you are as an individual, what happens is that you come in contact with your personal emotional history. And when you start really engaging with that and understanding that there have been so many moments that have created you and have made you who you are, and especially the moments of intense emotions, moments where you felt, either anger, sadness, or some sort of heavier emotion very intensely. And these moments actually leave their mark in your subconscious and predispose you to feeling them again. So you're literally going to be patterned into behaving and thinking in a certain way, so that if a similar situation arises, you're going to be prone to anger or prone to whatever it is that you've actually replicated so many times in the past. So in a very real way, the mind is actively trying to recreate the past over and over again. And if you have the courage, then you can actually start asking yourself, well, now, if I have all of this accumulated inside of me, how do I let go? How do I go about releasing all of these things? And I think this is where we're at now in this modern age, is that people are defining letting go in a lot of different ways and finding out what actually works for them. And that's what's special about this moment in human history, is that, there are always groups of people who are trying to change the world for the better. Those people are moving together now to make the world into a better place, but we also have the accessibility and the tools that can profoundly change us as individuals, so that we can do that simultaneous collective work and individual work at the same time. So when you find something that actually meets you where you're at, where you can profoundly go within yourself and start letting go of these patterns through calmness, through concentration, because it's really when the mind sort of settles down, that barrier between the conscious and the subconscious starts releasing. And in those moments, you start feeling literally the past kind of evaporating like a cloud. And then you can start thinking more clearly, seeing more clearly, and behaving in a whole new way and literally living a new life. One thing that I found really helpful is understanding the mind in a really simple structure, and that's seeing the mind as a really bright sun, like a star that's covered in clouds. Literally just covered so thickly in clouds that you can't see the rays of sunlight shining outward. And you can think of that central sun as your consciousness, and you can think of the clouds around it as your ego, literally containing the heavier parts of your conditioning and literally everything that's come together to amass who you are in this current moment. And what we start finding out is that when we put ourselves in the process of letting go and find a tool that actually functions well for us, we start releasing these denser clouds, and literally rays of that clarity and love of consciousness start shining through. And it's interesting that, all throughout history, we talk about human nature being kind of greedy, fearful, hateful. But in reality, when you put yourself into a process of releasing and letting go, you end up finding that human nature is not like that at all. What that is human habit. It's that we've been habituated to behave in these ways because of not just evolution, but from our own personal defense mechanisms. And even though something intense might have happened, the ego helps you pick yourself back up and keep going. It is not there to help you with your happiness. It will help you acquire pleasure, but happiness and pleasure aren't necessarily the same thing. When you start releasing that thickness of all these clouds that are surrounding the clarity of the sun that's at the core of every single human being, you start finding that we all have this immense creativity. We all have this powerful ability to problem solve. And we all have this sort of innate love that is just waiting to flood the gates. The moment that the dam breaks, it just starts coming out and roaring out. And it's really this process that, through the transformation of the individual, I think we're gonna have a profound collective healing. People have always tried to change the world for the better, but now we actually have the tools to help us change ourselves profoundly and start releasing all those clouds that create so much limiting barriers and conditioning and cause all that division and separation that we're so accustomed to. But through allowing consciousness to step forward through our own individual healing, we're going to have so much more connection, so much more community, and just like an ability to create things that we thought were impossible before. One thing that could really just push forward all of humanity is understanding that you're really always changing, and who you are is not one thing, but actually many things coming together.